A very good day to all of you students. Today I shall teach you class 9th history lesson 3rd. Name of the chapter is Nazism and the rise of Hitler. Student, next is the economic crisis in USA. Student, German investment and industrial recovery were totally dependent on the short-term loans, largely from the USA. This support was withdrawn when the Wall Street Exchange crashed in 1929. Fearing a fall in price, people made frantic efforts to sell their shares. Students, on one single day, on 24 October, 13 million shares were sold. This was the start of the Great Economic Depression. Student, factories were shut down, exports fell, farmers were badly hit, and speculators withdrew their money from the market. Student, the effects of this recession in the US economy were felt worldwide. Next is the destruction of democracy. On 30 January 1933, President Hindenburg offered the chancellorship, the highest position in the cabinet ministers, to Hitler. Student, after acquired power, Hitler set out to dismantle the structure of the democratic rule. He suspended civics rights like freedom of speech, press, and assembly that had been guaranteed by the Weimar Constitution. Then he turned on his arch-enemies, the communists, most of whom were hurriedly packed off to the newly established concentration camp. Students, special surveillance and security forces were created to control and order society in the ways that the Nazis wanted. These were the Gestapo, secret state police, and the SS, the protection squads, criminal police, and the security services. Student, Nazis chose a war as the way out of the approaching economic crisis. Nazis argued that the Germans are Aryans and the Aryan race was the finest. It had to retain its purity. It had to become stronger and dominate the world. Once in power, the Nazis began to establish a racial state by physically eliminating all those who were seen as undesirable in the extended empire. Next is the economic recovery made in Germany. Student, the responsibility of the economic recovery was assigned by Hitler to the economist Jalmar Schach. He aimed at full production and full employment through a state-funded work creation program. Student, the project produced the famous German superhighways and the people's car, the Volkswagen. This car made it possible for an ordinary worker to own a car. Schach was removed as he cautioned Hitler against investing hugely in rearmament as the state was on the deficit financing. Because cautious, people had no place in Nazi Germany. Next is the foreign policy of Hitler. He pulled out of the League of Nations in 1933. He reoccupied Greenland in 1936. He integrated Austria and Germany in 1938 under the slogan One People, One Empire, and One Leader. He wrested German-speaking Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia and gobbled up the entire country. Student, in all these actions, Germany was supported by England, which had considered the Treaty of Versailles too harsh. These successes revered the destiny of Germany. Student, in September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. In September 1940, a tripartite pact was signed between Germany, Italy, and Japan. This strengthened Hitler's claim to international power. Student, puppetism that supported Germany were installed in a large part of Europe by the end of 1940. Hitler was at the pinnacle of his power. Next is the circumstances leading to the entry of the USA in the Second World War. The USA had entered the First World War in 1917 but had faced many economic problems. So therefore it did not want to join the Second World War, but it could not remain out of the war for a long. Japan was extended its power in the east. It had occupied French Indochina and was planning attacks on the US naval base in the Pacific. Ultimately, Japan extended its supports to Hitler and bombed the US base at the Pearl Harbor. Student, under these circumstances, the US had no other option except to enter the war against Hitler and its allies. Next is the Christian hostility towards Jews. Student, Jews had been stereotyped as killer of Christ and assarer. Until medieval times, Jews were barred from owning land. They survived mainly through the trade and money lending. They lived in a separately marked areas called ghettos. They were often persecuted through the periodic organized violence and expulsion from the land. But student, the traditional Christianity hostility toward the Jews differed from the Hitler's hatred for the Jews, because Hitler's hatred was based on pseudo-scientific theories of race, which held that conversion was no solution to the Jewish problem. It could be solved only through their total elimination. Thus, from 1933 to 1938, the Nazis terrorized, segregated the Jews, compelled them to leave the country. Student steps such as boycott of Jewish business, expulsion from the government services, these were taken. The next phase, 1939 to 1945, aimed at concentrating them in certain areas and eventually killing them in a gas chamber in Poland. Under Ghettoization 1940-44, men and women were left with nothing to survive in the ghettos. From 1941 onwards, Jews from the Jewish houses, concentration camps, and ghettos from different parts of the Europe were brought to death factories by good strain. Mass killing took place within a minute with scientific precision. Student, I have taught you the third part of this chapter. I think you might have understood. So you like it and share it to other students to get education. You subscribe it for my next educational video. Thank you. Have a nice day. God bless you all.